Hi, I am Mike Ganino, uh, and this is Chloe DeVita. We have a program called the Mike Direct Method, where we help people who are public speakers, aspiring public speakers, authors, coaches, thought leaders to write, perform,
hmm
and direct their speeches, presentations, TEDx talks, one person shows, whatever you want to do, that's you in front of other people. We teach that. Hi, Chloe.
hmm Hello, it's wonderful to be here. I'm excited to help share what we have to share today, which is five the five languages every speaker needs to have to get standing ovation speeches. And we've been helping so many, all those things Mike just listed, entrepreneurs, all the different people for so long, and I'm excited about what we've put together and to really bring it here and share it.
Well, one of the things that so often we think when we're practicing a speech or we're writing a speech or we're writing a presentation, we're giving a breakout session at a conference, we think, oh, I've got to get my slides ready, I've got to get my words correct.
Mhm.
And we forget that maybe we've just never been taught, because who's been taught this unless you have worked with us or you've
Yeah.
gone through some of the specific trainings we have. Me as a performer, as an actor, writer, writing comedy, writing sketch, and then coaching and directing people in that world, and then as a public
Yeah.
speaking coach, and Chloe as an
Yep.
event producer, as a choreographer, as a dancer, and as the
hmm
current executive producer of TEDx Cambridge.
Yep.
You maybe haven't seen any of these things. So no wonder we sit down and say, oh, I've got to get all the words right, because the words are
hmm
what convince the audience. And we think the words are just one very small part of the equation. And there are these five languages that we need to be able to speak when we're on
hmm
stage in front of people. And the first one, and the first one makes sense because it's in the name, public speaking. And so the first one is verbal.
Yep.
This is the words you're actually saying. This is the way you've put your sentences together. And we teach this in a whole section on writing. But if you
Yeah.
today had a presentation and you're looking at it, you're getting ready right now, and in an hour you had to go give this presentation, then hopefully you could watch this short training and
Yes.
layer in some of these. So verbal is thinking about the word choices, the
hmm
story choices, the contrast really in the actual words you're using.
And using the right ones, because even like, for instance, if you were going to go and talk to a dance studio, you're going to refer to their customers as students because that's who
Mm.
they bring in, versus if you're going to go talk to a marketing company, you're going to use the word customers. And it's that kind of thing that we need to make sure we're clarifying for our audience.
Yeah. Well, I love that too, because early in my speaking career, I had a speaking gig with a credit union group.
Mm.
And I remember my good friend Neen James, speaker extraordinaire, like fairy godmother to me in so many ways. She said, don't forget, do not call the people that are the customers of the credit union, don't call them customers. Don't call them
Mm.
clients. They call them members. And it is
hmm
a sure sign that you don't understand
hmm
their world if you call them that. The same way
Yep.
that Chloe's mentioning here about a dance studio. So that's really
Yep.
that's a really important thing to know verbally. Also, verbally is, how can you use metaphor?
hmm
How can you use simile? How can you use rhetorical devices like repeating the
hmm
beginning of something three times?
Yep.
Um,
Analogies.
yeah. How
hmm
can you apply all of those beautiful, you know, plays on words to deliver what you want? And you don't need to do this in every single line and you're overthinking it, but really thinking through, where do I use it? We
hmm
teach a little bit about using metaphors and how metaphors that are mechanical um, tend to make people feel that something can be broken down, versus
hmm
metaphors that are nature specific, um, rolling, weaving,
hmm
blossoming. Those feel really futuristic and possible. So, depending on what you want to do in your speech, you would use different ones. If I wanted them to feel, hey, this is all in trouble, I would say crashing,
Hmm.
I would say, breaking, crunching. I would use these words about machinery. If I wanted them to feel hopeful, then I would use words that are more nature driven. So, how
Hmm.
can you verbally start to do this? And when we get to step 5,
Hmm.
here, the fifth language, you'll see why this is so important. So that's the
Yep.
first one, is verbal. If you have a talk coming up in an hour, think about, are there some places where I can make really specific verbal choices to communicate what I want? The second one is vocal.
Hmm.
Okay. This is the actual sound of your voice, which is really
Yeah.
like these little meat flaps moving with air. That's what voice is. I have a toddler daughter who's, developing language every day. And all the
Hmm.
time my husband is like, okay, thank you, I get it. I was like, oh, she's making a plosive sound. And it's easier to do a P than a B and a G than a he. And he's like, can she just talk? And I'm like, no, I love this stuff. So vocal is the actual
Yeah.
sounds, the
Hmm.
emotion, really, that
Yeah.
you put on top of the verbal choices you make.
Yeah. And it's like the way you use those words, like even in how I said that, how I emphasize
Ooh.
use, right? The way you're using. And I love fricatives, and there's some fun things in there of how you can use your words to impact and
Can you say
create what we're
fricative
going
on
to
LinkedIn? Maybe.
do. I hope so. I
Sometimes when
did.
she gets mad at me, she calls me a fricative. So go figure. But the vocal quality, and so how
Hmm.
can you use pitch? How can you use passion, emotion? How can you use punch, volume, pacing? How can you use all of these ingredients of voice to help communicate?
Yeah.
And how can you mark up your PowerPoint, your script, your notes to make sure that you're doing that in a way that communicates what you want?
Yeah.
Again, when we get to 5, you'll see how this all
Yeah.
blends together. So vocal is really making choices with the way the words sound, the way they feel, as Chloe said so beautifully there, and then
Hmm.
throwing in a fricative. Okay, the third one here in the 5 stage languages is visual.
Hmm.
Visual is what your audience actually sees. Nothing happens out of context. And so, what are they actually seeing during your presentation? What are the slides? Where are you in conjunction with the slides? How can you be part of it? Because you are, because the audience is watching. If you're live on a stage in a boardroom in front of your team, they're watching the whole image. So how does that look and feel? What's
Yep.
behind you in a visual presentation? Um, if
Hmm.
you are present, what are you wearing? So all of the things that the audience can see, we call that stage image. When we teach our speaking clients to learn to direct their own performances, because honestly, if you could hire us to be your directors and travel
Yeah.
with you all the time and make your choices, like, hey, come on in, we're ready for it. But it's much more valuable for you to learn to direct yourself. And so that's
Hmm.
why we teach that in the mic drop method, our program that we teach people these skills. And so in that, being able to make those visual choices based on stage image or
Yeah.
screen image. What is the audience seeing? A director in a film, by the way, would be making
Hmm.
choices about where's the lighting, even what angle is the camera, because a camera looking down on us and us looking up, hi daddy, says
Hmm.
something different than us looking down at it versus us looking right at it. So what are all of those stage image choices you can make visually?
Yep. And we borrow a lot from Hollywood because there is a reason people continue to watch TV and go to movies and everything, right? And so that element of like, what is the scene you're looking at is everything that visual is about.
And you could see, like, I'm out to get this goldfish. Okay, so people
Hmm.
talk about how our attention span is shorter than a goldfish. First of all, show me the research, because I've done it. There, you can't really find this study because
Yeah.
who would be, if you've ever tried to get money for funding for research, you would realize how hard it is, and nobody cares about a goldfish's attention span. So when you start to look it up, what you'll see is someone wrote a Forbes magazine article where they referenced an article in someone else's Inc. magazine article, which references someone's blog, which references someone else's blog, which references a comment in a YouTube video. And there's no goldfish study about our attention span being shorter than goldfish. Case in point, if you'd like me to prove it, how many people listened all the way through at midnight when a new Taylor Swift album comes out? They sit in their bathtubs with their glass of wine or their tea, wearing a cardigan, crying with the water running over the top of them as they listen to the full Taylor Swift album. How many people binge watch every episode of a show that they can't? Right now, we're really into Stanley Tucci's travel show on CNN. It's just like gorgeous, beautiful travel show. It's filling the void of Anthony Bourdain a little bit for me. That
Mm.
and Nomad, another great show on CNN about travel. Um, and they only release one a week. You can't binge it. I
No.
want to watch 7 hours of Stanley Tucci eating, carbonara. I want to see that, but I can't. I got to watch it every week. So if you still believe the goldfish thing, I mean, let's just point to what Chloe said with Hollywood, Broadway. I mean, we got people to watch a 3-hour show and pay, a second mortgage to get tickets to watch about the founding of America from Lin-Manuel Miranda's perspective. So there's
Yep.
nothing wrong with our attention span. It's that we have a lot of choices. So
Hmm.
how can we borrow from the most engaging places on earth to bring it here? And that's why we borrow a lot from Hollywood and Broadway to bring in. And by the way, we've both worked with quite a people in that world. So we've
Yes.
not only been in that world as performers, but we've also coached people in that world so that they
Hmm.
could pitch their ideas, get their shows made,
Yep.
build their attractions in a theme park, all those things. So visual is the third
Hmm.
one that you've got to know that language. So if you have a presentation in an hour, give it a wash
Yeah.
visually. What's it
Yeah.
look like? How's it feel? How's the font? What's the color? What's the mood? Give it a look.
Hmm.
Fourth one, physical. This is Chloe's favorite.
Hmm. Well, being a dancer, literally everything is physical. And in the dance world, when you're choreographing, you're still thinking about everything else. It might not be verbal vocal from here, but there's music playing that you are aligning to. And so there's still elements that apply for what people hear. It's still about like your audience is hearing those things and
That's
that
right.
makes them feel. And so it all kind of comes in. So when you talk about physical, it's more than just like how you appear, right? What you're doing with your hands. That's
Right.
probably one of the biggest things, right? What do I do with my hands? It's more than that. It's where are you on the stage? When do you move? How do you move? It's really making intentional choices about every piece of your physicality
Mm.
and how that appears on a stage or on a screen.
Mhm.
Same goes for screen. It's a movement is the place where people will let their nervous energy out in a very unintentional way.
Mm.
But as you work with us and you learn your choices and you understand how you can, take physicality and make it match your words, match your verbal and your vocal, create a visual so that the audience is really following you, it'll just become more natural. You'll think about it less and just do it more and not pace and rock and do all the things that are actually pretty distracting for an audience.
Yeah. And when you weave it together with these other ones, you start to use your movement to help you
Mhm.
do all of it versus thinking,
Yep.
what do I do with my hands? What do I do with my bodies? You go back to what's the image? What's the language
Mhm.
what am I trying to communicate? And what's the most effective way to do it? That's what Chloe's talking about with intentionality of using this vessel, because when we're public speaking, we are the message. It
Mhm.
isn't our speech. It isn't our speech. If it was, then just send me you know, you can go to the Drama Bookstore in New York, my favorite bookstore in America, and you can get almost any play. You can get the play version, the script version of it. Yet we
Mhm.
still go see the show. Why? Because of all five of these stage languages being used. If it was just the
Mhm.
words, then send me the script. I've already read your book. Think of the people, the best-selling authors who we've all read their books: Simon Sinek, Brene Brown, Malcolm Gladwell, Mel Robbins, Aaron King. All of these people where we've read their book and we still show up to hear them talk about the book. We might have
Mm-hmm.
even listened to them talk about it on Audible. We listen to their podcast. We absorb
Yep.
everything we can about them, and then we still pay money to get on a plane, to go to a conference, to see them speak.
Yep.
Why? Because they are the message and there's something magic about it. These five languages help you have that same control over your message and your idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
Yep.
last one. This is really the roll up of all of them. It's
It is.
imaginative. What is the emotional language of everything you've done here? Because
Mm-hmm.
everything here is about helping the audience have an image. Storytelling, people say storytelling is about conflict.
Mm.
Storytelling is about a beginning, middle, and end. You know what has a beginning, middle, and an end? My coffee. And it's almost ended. And so I got to go get another one. So beginning and middle and end is the worst storytelling advice I've ever heard,
Mm-hmm.
because literally everything has a beginning, middle, and end, even if it's the lifespan of something that lasts 2 seconds. It all has
Mm-hmm.
it. So that's not it. What storytelling really is about is helping to create visual images for the audience so they can either go on that journey with you or experience it for themselves. And
Yeah.
imaginative here is the speaker's language to be able to create pictures inside of the audience's mind. And all of these other four help to do that. But if we
Yes.
cannot create that, this is the key to engagement. Engagement is not about, did I tell them to talk to me in the chat? Did I create an activity where they had to hug each other? Don't do that, by
Mm-hmm.
the way. Did I make them, sing a song? That's not what engagement is about. Engagement is about firing up their mind and getting them to see images of what you mean.
Mm-hmm. And those images are what drive their emotional connection to you. And they're what keep your audiences connected because they're all thinking about things. There is imagination going on in their minds at all times when they're sitting there. And if you're
Mm,
not actually in controlling the journey and using all of these languages, verbal, vocal, visual, and physical, to help create what is happening in their mind and drive that emotion, they're off making their grocery list.
yeah. Yeah. They're tweeting, they're doing something else. They're, you know, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
where, people get on virtual and it's like, turn on your camera, I could turn on my camera and be watching a YouTube video. Like,
Yeah.
the magic is in the writing, the performing, and the directing of this. So,
Yes.
if you have ideas that you have to share, if you're a thought leader, an
Mm-hmm.
author, a coach, an entrepreneur, and you are someone who wants to use public speaking to help people see your vision of the world, whether that's through the product that you've founded, that you've developed, a new app you're creating, whether it's a book, a coaching program, whatever that is, if you
Mm-hmm.
have that, then we would love the chance to expand on the ideas from this training. And we've got a live public training coming up. We've got a training that you can watch that includes all this, that shows you really what we're talking about. When we talk about you want to be a mic drop moment worthy speaker that people talk about, refer, and even if it's just they talk about when they go home from a meeting with you and they talk to their coworker or their spouse and they say, whoa, I really never thought of it this way, I really see things differently. If that's even what you're after, then we would love the chance to show you what that takes. We've got a program called the Mic Drop Method, where we bring in all of these ideas you've heard about here, plus how to write and organize a speech, how to put it together. We've got content on slide design, on stories, on humor, on all those
Mm-hmm.
things, as well as how to direct yourself, how to make choices in these five languages in your writing. And this is we've got a deep dive training, so you can get access to that training by going to mikeanino.com/apply, as you can see here. There you go. So you could go to mikeanino.com/apply. That'll then get you the information you need to go through the deep dive where we walk you through all of this. And at the end of it, if you want to work with us, you'll find out how we work with people. If not, you're still better off for having gone through the
Mm-hmm.
training and experiencing this idea of what it takes. So if you are someone who has something to say, if you are someone that says, I see what's going on, and I have a vision of what could be, I've got an argument for the way that we should be being in the world,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's through an app, coaching program, whatever the case is. We'd love to walk you through what we've done, what we've seen, how we've coached people to write, perform, and direct those kinds of speeches and presentations. And then at the end, if you want to work with us, we'll tell you how. But otherwise, you'll leave knowing how to do this yourself. So we hope you'll see you there. MikeandNino.com/apply is the place to
Mm-hmm.
go. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah.